Blimey, I don't think anyone saw that coming, did they? Manchester United 3-0 winners in Bilbao, taking a massive step to the Europa League final. I don't think anybody could have expected a performance like that, a result like that, and for United to be so comfortable going into the second leg at Old Trafford. Touch wood, obviously. You never know with this United team, do you? They can always throw something unpredictable in a negative sense up when you don't expect it. But absolutely fantastic performance tonight. Great performances all over the pitch. Bruno Fernandes leading by example with 2 goals, directly involved in 37 goals this season, 9 more than any other midfielder in Europe. Absolutely sensational. CASEMIRO, the resurgence is incredible. Like, the player that we're watching over the last few weeks and watching in these matches versus the player that you saw in Erik ten Hag's teams, absolutely unrecognizable. The revival has been fantastic. You got Harry Maguire turning like Lamine Yamal. Amazing performance all round. A difficult first 20 minutes, but, you know, it's one of those games, really, one of those atmospheres where you do expect to get peppered a little bit and you do expect that things will be made pretty difficult. But United came through that. They got the goal, the first goal at the right time, changed the mood in the game completely. They have a penalty go their way, and you know, when Athletic go down to 10 men, it was all about whether United could manage the occasion correctly. And although I would have liked another goal on top of the 3 that we got, you can't really complain too much. But a fantastic performance all around, fantastic result for Ruben Amorim and Manchester United. A big, big step has been taken back to Bilbao in 3 weeks' time, or less than 3 weeks' time, and the Europa League final. United are now, they just have to see this out at Old Trafford next Thursday. And then the Europa League final, prospect of winning the Europa League is upon us. This is the Promised Land podcast from me, Scott Saunders, talking all things Manchester United, just reacting to what I've just seen there. Probably the best performance, definitely top 3 anyway, the best performance of Ruben Amorim's reign. This is a difficult place to go. They don't lose a lot of matches at San Mamés. They don't concede a lot of goals at San Mamés. And United have scored 3. Absolutely incredible stuff. Please follow me on social media at @_Scott Saunders on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Please subscribe to the podcast on Apple and Spotify. Give a 5-star review. Let me know your comments, your thoughts on that performance, and get in the comments on the YouTube channel as well. And subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please do. And look, I'm going to drop regular content on Manchester United over the course of the next few weeks, few months. I have been doing so for a little while now as well. So any support would be greatly appreciated. So look, I think I'll maybe go through the game chronologically, because we came into it. I came into it maybe thinking that United, I said in the last podcast, they do have a knack of turning up when you don't really expect them to. We've had evidence of that in the FA Cup final last year. We've had evidence of it at Anfield this season. We've had evidence of it against Arsenal in the FA Cup as well, against Manchester City when they beat them away from home. But, you know, this season has been so bad that you kind of just go into default mode. And I spent most of my night thinking, right, how are they going to mess this up then? Because I've seen Andre Onana drop clangers in the Champions League. I've seen United have 2-goal advantages in the Champions League last year and absolutely capitulate under pressure. We saw United in the last round go 2-0 up against Lyon, then concede 4 goals in a row, then come back to win it 5-4. So you never really know what to expect out of this United team. But this was a professional performance that they got through. Look, they rode their luck a little bit in the first 20 minutes or so. The atmosphere, a lot will be made of that. I think the atmosphere possibly influenced some decisions, like the Garnacho penalty shout in the second half, which I think was a penalty, by the way. But that atmosphere can get on top of you. It's a difficult place to go. They turn over big teams pretty regularly. And United did ride their luck in a sense. There was one particular chance which was just headed over the bar, a free header where I think one of the Williams brothers got ahead of Lenny Yoro and headed it over the bar. But you know, I think United struggled to deal with the press. We talked about that in the lead up to the game. The press and the pressure from Athletic is, they really set their stall out early on. And had they scored one of these goals, a goal early on from one of the chances they created, this would have been a very, very different night, I'm sure. But, you know, the goal didn't come their way. United then managed to just build up some momentum. out of nowhere, really. And I'll talk about the first goal in a second, but I think like Manuel Ugarte, for example, and Patrick Dorgu, the first 20 minutes or so, they didn't have the best of times, or the best of Ugarte in particular. I think he was dispossessed in possession quite a few times. And it seemed like this would be another one of those nights where United really struggled to get to grips with it. I think back to a couple of years ago where United got heavily beaten by Sevilla. I think it was in the Europa League. And David De Gea, I think they lost 3-0. David De Gea made a mistake. And that's the kind of vibe that you were getting early on in that game. But what happened is, and Ruben Amorim has talked about this so many times in his press conferences, either looking forward to games or after matches, the importance of the first goal in these matches. Think of how many cheap goals and how many times United have fallen behind this season in certain matches, and how that has affected their mentality throughout matches. It is so imperative that the first goal, especially the way that United defend at the moment, especially the system that they have, they do have a lot of players, in that the back five or whatever, two defensive screens in the midfield as well in this case, and they have a team really which is kind of built there to, especially in this iteration of it, with it not being as attacking as Ruben Amorim would like it to be, because he hasn't got the wing backs he wants. It's very difficult for this team to go on the attacking thrust and to kind of turn matches around. What you need really, and what Ruben Amorim has needed for confidence purposes and just in general, just because it's easier to get through matches, score first. And you think it took some like Lamine Yamal levels of dribbling from Harry Maguire to pick the deadlock. But the fact that goal came just after a period in the game where Athletic were really on top, they had a few chances, they were putting a lot of pressure on United. Then they go up the other end. Harry Maguire twists and turns. The the way that he has recovered from the ridicule of his first few years at United, or that period in the middle of his career at United. I think he started quite well, but the way he has recovered and the way he has come into this team under Ruben Amorim and really found himself, and has he's playing with his chest up, and he's got confidence enough to be in the right channel or on the right hand side, dribble past a couple of players, put a cross in, which is flicked on by Manuel Ugarte, and then Casemiro's at the back post to head the ball in. That is, I can't explain to you how important that first goal has been to United's performance tonight and United's ability to get through this tie. Fingers crossed they do. It makes such a difference, especially in big European matches. You can't be chasing the game. And I'm sure that would have been probably one of the messages from Ruben Amorim to his team going into this game. Like, keep things tight. Do not concede first. Do not let this crowd get on top of you. And it turns out that Harry Maguire is absolute magic, dribbling past a couple of players, putting a cross in like he did. And Casemiro at the back post, he comes up with a lot of important goals, Casemiro, and I will talk about him a little bit later in the podcast. Absolutely fantastic performance from him all around. And he pops up with important goals as well. So big shout out to him. And then it's so important that United keep the momentum and they keep trying to, take control of the game. And they didn't let Athletic get back into it. They kept the pressure on. And then about comes it was a debatable penalty in their eyes, but for me, cast iron penalty. Rasmus Højlund's getting on the end of that if his shirt isn't tugged back. And I know it took a long time for the decision to be made, but it's a stonewall penalty for me, and it's a red card as well. If you're going to take the risk of putting a player back like that in the age of VAR, then you're running the risk of walking off the pitch early on. And the referee was brave enough to make that call, even though the crowd just absolutely hated it. And I've seen that there's been replays shared on social media and this kind of thing about, I think Garnacho hit his hand in the lead up to the goal as he was dribbling, but the hand was on the floor, obviously, and that's not a handball in modern day. And then, people will find ways to complain just about any decision that's been made nowadays. But I think the referee, on the whole, I think he maybe bottled out of a couple of decisions towards as the game went on, as the crowd got on top of him. But I think generally the refereeing performance was good. I think some decisions he made were quite ballsy. And Bruno Fernandes obviously stepping up and as calm as you like. Absolutely, I can't believe the volume of goals he has contributed to. 37 goals this season. I forget the breakdown. Something like 18 goals on 19 goals and 16 assists or something like that. Is absolutely fantastic from him. And United have needed a leader over the last few weeks. Well, throughout the season, it's been so difficult. And Bruno Fernandes, the way he has adapted to either one of the two 10 roles and the way he has adapted to playing in the deeper midfield role later in matches when Ruben Amorim has wanted to drop him in there. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic from Bruno Fernandes. And, you know, United then really the fact that they I think they really played on the crowd a little bit because it seemed like with the fact that the Europa League final is going back to Bilbao, I think Athletic have seen this as an opportunity for them to really seize the day and return to the final just by winning this semi-final. And obviously, I think a lot of pressure will have gone into that. There would have been a lot of hope and expectation within the crowd, and the atmosphere was bubbling all day long. I think it was a bank holiday in Spain today as well. So I think a lot of people would have spent the entire day building up to this game. And I'm sure the players would have known the importance of it as well and what it would have meant to the club to be able to get back to the final in 3 weeks' time or so. But when United scored that goal and when the decision went their way for the penalty and when the decision went their way for the red card and when Bruno Fernandes converted that penalty, it seemed to really shift uh, it seemed like their world was crashing down in a sense. And I think United, although I think maybe in the second half they could have done a better job. If there's one criticism I have tonight, and it's a very light one, if there's one criticism I have tonight, it would have been that I would have. This is purely from a paranoia perspective for me as a United fan. Really, I would have liked a fourth goal at least or a fifth goal, just so I can. So we got as much of a buffer as possible going into the second leg, because even three now, you think if you go into the second leg next week and Athletic score after 5 minutes, then you're like, oh no, what's going to happen here? But the fact that United looked at the situation, kept the pressure on, and went in there and managed then to capitalize on the situation, get a third goal right on the stroke of half time through Bruno Fernandes. That could be the kicker. That could be the goal, really, which look, the ties in United's favour already, but I think a 3-0 lead is a hell of a job. Like you look at the Tottenham game, and I think Tottenham went 3-0 up as well around the same time as United did, but crucially conceded a late goal to Bodo Glimt. So that puts a little bit of doubt in their minds, really. I'm sure with I think it's a plastic pitch that they're going to go play on next week, and in the Arctic Circle, this kind of thing. The fact that United are coming through this with a 3-goal advantage compared to a 2 is absolutely huge. And I think just generally, there were so many good performances across the pitch all throughout the night. I mean, you can write off, or you can look at the first 20 minutes or so and look at the atmosphere and look at the likes of Ugarte and Dorgu I've mentioned already, and you think they were struggling to get to grips with the game. Maybe Victor Lindelof as well hasn't had tons of football over the course of the season, but these players maybe struggled to adapt to the pace of the game. Athletic obviously wanted to make a statement from early on, and they very nearly did. But United, I wouldn't say they rode their luck, but on another day, one of those opportunities that they had could have gone in, especially that header I talked about. And then things could really, really turn around and it could be a lot more difficult for United. But they thrust the momentum of the game into their hands. And I think the good thing about this is they did not let it slip. They did not let it go. And I think there were so many people out there, United fans, probably maybe not the ones in the stadium, but if you're watching it from home like I did, you have memories of the last Champions League campaign or the moments even in the league where United have lost leads and this kind of thing. They are so susceptible to that happening that you just think, oh God, like this could happen again. And I'm so glad it didn't. I think the second half performance was really quite mature. I would have liked more attacking thrust, really. I think United really could have turned the screw a little bit, especially considering they were playing against 10 men. And obviously they're not going to play against 10 men next week, for example. But I think the most important thing coming out of this was after you descended to that 3-goal lead, just keeping it and making sure that you gave nothing stupid away, making sure that you managed the crowd, making sure that you managed any flare-up situations. There was one flashpoint with Harry Maguire potentially about, I think the crowd wanted him sent off, but it was never a sending off really. But I think the fact that United managed the game, and there are people in that, there are people in that team who have a hell of a lot of experience at the top level in Europe. And Casemiro, his performance, I'll talk about it in a little bit more detail in a second, but just after this break. But Casemiro played such an important part in his presence on the pitch. He's won like loads of Champions Leagues. He's played at the highest level for Real Madrid. He's been in that stadium many times before. And his influence on the game tonight, Bruno Fernandes as well, calming things down, making sure United made the right decisions was super, super important. But like I say, I'll be back just after this quick break. And I'll be talking about some individual performances and some returns as well. Ahmad returning to the team and, turning players inside out already. Right, during that break, I've just checked my social media at @double_Scott Saunders if you'd like to follow me. And apparently, I tweeted at one point, Harry Maguire is better than Lamine Yamal. And I'm having a bunch of you or a bunch of people who've interacted with the tweet saying I got a shout out on TNT Sports. So I haven't actually seen it yet, but that's a nice fun one. I said I would talk about individual performances, and Harry Maguire's. I want to do a podcast on just looking at the way he has come back from the difficulty that he had. Remember, he got arrested in Greece, it just seemed like the entire world was crashing down. He had, he's had great times with England. He's had certain points in his United career as well where he's in a specific Europa League campaign where United lost in the final on penalties to Villarreal. I think he was injured, wasn't he? He was injured around that time, and he was considered such a big blow at the time that he got injured. But generally, he's had a lot of the brunt of his career, or most of his career at United, has just been because he signed for 80 million quid. He's been essentially like considered a laughing stock, and you think of how difficult that has been to deal with, in how difficult that has been to get through in your mind as a professional footballer, and to come back and absolutely the way he has played over the course of United have been awful in the league. They have. So it seems quite weird that I'm bigging up individual performances and the way that people have bounced back, given United are 14th in the Premier League or whatever. But turning up in moments like this, doing what he did, absolutely unbelievable. The goal against Lyon, and then like breaking the deadlock here. I know he didn't actually score, but like he was the one that created this chance for the goal. The way he is reborn under Ruben Amorim in that central centre-back role, absolutely massive. And I think credit here, it needs to go to Amorim as well, because I'm talking about Casemiro in a second. The way that he's had to learn coming in, he sees football a certain way, and he thinks he has like optimal like characteristics that he sees in players that he wants to utilize. And I'm sure when he came in and he had to learn what the qualities of this United team were, I think maybe he'd probably be surprised by it. And that's why it's taken such a long time maybe to see United actually turn up in matches and like raise their level in performance. But I think Amorim himself has how he's got through to these players and how he's lifted their performances and how he's maybe altering, in Casemiro's case, I think he's altering his system a little bit to make sure that Casemiro brings his best to the table instead of having all that space that he was famously called out by Jamie Carragher for like leave the football before the football leaves you, like that famous rant that he had. The way that he is, the resurgence in him as well, to the point where we've been looking at Maguire, been looking at Casemiro over the course of the last couple of years, really, and thinking it's going to be the right time for them to leave at some point, or they probably need to leave, and the team needs to move past these players. But the way that Amorim has got into these players, to the league campaigns are right off, but turning up in big moments and in big matches, like, it is so important, because United are judged by, as much as they're judged by position in the Premier League and this kind of thing, they need to win trophies. And winning 2 trophies in the last 2 years has required big performances from certain players on massive days. And I think you got some big performances in the FA Cup final last year, and you get a big performance here tonight. And maybe I'm speaking a little bit soon because United are, only in the semi-final. They haven't got through to the final yet, and there's still work to do. But massive credit to Harry Maguire for the way that he has recovered from that difficult period in his career to become probably, maybe I'm being a bit mean to Lenny Yoro here because he's fantastic. Lenny Yoro is absolutely brilliant. He's going to be brilliant. But I think Harry Maguire is really, really super important to this iteration of the United team. He's extended his deal. I think he's on a big chunk of money, obviously. And I think United are going to have to make a decision on him because I know that they're looking at rebuilding their wage structure, this kind of thing. But Maguire's importance has just really ramped up over the course of the last few months. And he does tend to show up, doesn't he? And it's massive for him. I'm really happy that Harry Maguire has started to show himself. Casemiro as well. I've mentioned him a few times, but the maturity, and I talked about Ruben Amorim and the tactics and maybe tweaking the tactics. And I've said this on the podcast a few times over the course of the last few weeks. But Casemiro has, since being, well, I think United wanted to sell him in January, right? But the way that he has come back into prominence, and now he's like super important. He's like super important to this team. Like you are putting him in your starting 11 in this system, like in a heartbeat. You want to protect his minutes, you want to protect his legs, you want to make sure he's fresh. And he's so important in matches like this and in atmospheres like this because he always seems to know where the place is to stand to intercept the ball or to make a tackle. And he also, as well, there was an example in the second half of him passing through lines in order to break teams down. And I think there was one pass early in the second half to Garnacho was a perfect example of like a vertical ball right through into Garnacho's feet, and United were off on an attack. So I do think that Amorim deserves some credit here because he's looked at the players that he's got, and I think what's happened in this midfield is Amorim has previously had players who have wanted to. He's wanting them to cover a lot of ground, and potentially that means that there's a lot of space, whether they're covering space vertically or going backwards or shuttling out to the sides. I think Casemiro is better off when he has more protection and more bodies around him, so the space he has to cover is smaller, and then you can see the best of him. And I think Amorim has had to make some concessions, and I don't think the football and the style of play that you're seeing out of this iteration of United now will be what you see in a couple of years' time when the team changes. But Amorim has had to alter the way he does things, and Casemiro is fitting in perfectly. He's absolutely vital to this team, to the point now where I'm like, if they're not going to be able to shift his 350k contract in the summer, you're minimizing the weaknesses at the moment and you're elevating the strengths that he has. And if you get this version of Casemiro for another year, it wouldn't be the worst thing. So United have a plan and they're going to have to stick to it. And I'm recording straight after the game here, so it's I'm not going to try and be emotional about it, but you can definitely see like the benefits that Casemiro brings to this team. With all of there's certain younger players in this team, like Kobe Mainoo when he plays. Even Ugarte was asked about the importance of playing next to Casemiro yesterday and what he was learning off him in the pre-match press conference. You got Lenny Yoro who's playing close to him, Garnacho. All these players are gonna have to like try and soak up all that experience that they've got, because this is a player who has been completely written off by everyone. Like even me, like a lot of people in the United fan base as well have looked at him and thought like, you need to go. But the way that he has, risen back to prominence, he's a fix on the team sheet at the moment. And like, especially if United do get through to the final, it'll be so important in that final for United to get through it and win it, because he has experience of winning Champions League finals as well. Maybe I'll talk about him on another podcast to come, but this is just a quick roundup. Bruno Fernandes, I've already mentioned the fact that he is so involved in almost everything that United do. The fact that he is so calm, in set piece situations and from the penalty spot. Absolutely massive, absolutely fantastic. And the way that he has adapted his game since Ruben Amorim has come in to be a lot less, Hollywood pass. That was a big criticism we had of him, or that certain people had of him, and that the general public had of him over the course of his time. Like, he's been so effective at United, and I think United fans absolutely love him. But there is a section of people who don't look at him and think that they see the negatives. But I think what Bruno has done is he's got the armband, and he has really matured in a sense, and he plays football in a different way, a lot more mature. And we're getting is this the best version of Bruno Fernandes that we've seen? Not entirely sure, because United are, so low down in the league, but in terms of his numbers, absolutely massive. Involved in 37 goals this season, 9 more than any other midfielder in Europe. The Statman Dave stat. Like, the importance of him to this team, you can't overstate it. So important. And he will play a massive part if United get through to this final. Those two players there are the kind of the leading lights in this team, the most experienced players, and they will be massively relied upon in a pressure situation. I'm saying if United get through to the final, you can't bank on anything yet. I know that they're 3-0 up, but at the same time, we have seen crazier things happen before and seen them crumble under the pressure. But the important thing is we did not get that tonight. And Bruno Fernandes, fantastic performance. Lenny Yoro, I've spoken about him, so cool and calm. And this kid is like 18, 19 years old. Another brilliant performance from him. Garnacho as well. I thought, I've been quite critical of Garnacho for, maybe not quite critical of him, but I look at him and I don't think the fit is there exactly as a 10. But I thought his performance tonight was absolutely fantastic as well. The way that he is able to pick up the ball in certain positions and drive at players. I thought his first touch was really good tonight. He won a lot of important fouls, which should take the pressure off, or important fouls in certain positions to get United up the pitch. Really good performance from him tonight. And I don't think there were many players in this team after things had settled down. You can't really pick too many holes. It's who expected that? Who expected that we would come out of this game with a 3-0 lead and against one of the best teams in Spain, and we'd be looking at potentially being one step away from the Europa League final? I think I would have taken a 0-0 draw. I just said, don't lose the game coming into this. And absolutely fantastic performance from United. We'll see what happens. I'll be back with another podcast on Friday. Please subscribe to the podcast on Apple and Spotify. Give a 5-star review and leave a comment with your thoughts on the game as well. I'd really, really appreciate that if you could do that and support the podcast. Also subscribe on YouTube, the Promised Land of Manchester United podcast, or at TPLMUFC. Get in the comments, like the video as well, and let me know what you think. And also follow me on social media at @_ Saunders on X, Instagram, and TikTok as well. I'll be back for probably another look at the fallout from this game on Friday at some point. There's going to be a lot of discussion points, obviously. And I just wanted to bring you some kind of immediate reaction to this game as soon as the final whistle hits. So a fantastic night for Manchester United. Get your questions in if you have anything for me, and I'll maybe address them in the next show as well. But fantastic night for United, fantastic night for Ruben Amorim, and fingers crossed United will be going back to Bilbao in less than 3 weeks' time for the Europa League final. They're certainly in a good position to get there with a 3-0 advantage from the first leg in Bilbao. Anyway, I'm Scott. See you next time, everyone. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. This has been the Promised Land podcast.